This jog looks pretty sloppy. Not so good. But this one's much better. But what does this have to do with collection, though?
Hello, my name is Natalia Evan, and this is Rimba. Today is our first lesson on collection and how to sit the trot for the Red Level 4-H Horse Camp 2022. So what is collection? Collection is a way a horse moves in terms of how they carry themselves. It has to do with how they keep themselves in frame, how they're confidently and strongly moving forward onto something we called moving on to the bit. And all this energy and their propulsion, their motion, comes from the hindquarters. We can think of this in terms of an athlete who's just kind of slugging along, jogging along. Or we think of a confident athlete that has their body tucked under them, they got muscle in their body, and they're confidently moving forward. So at any gait, we can set up for collection, which also keeps the horse's spine and their body upright, moving confidently forward, so your ride is actually smoother. And this does take time. We have to build our horse up. They are athletes, so getting collection is a process and something we have to learn. In terms of using our body and understanding collection, we want to watch our equitation, make sure we're sitting deep. When we have our hands, we like to use the term half halts, or you might also hear someone say feathering the reins. Here's a big thing to think about. If your horse's neck goes like this, that is not collection.
Not good.
We like to think of something called being on the vertical. Being on the vertical means that they are resting right on the bit. And you'll hear some people refer to this as being submissive to the bit. This means that they're quiet, they're moving forward correctly. When they're on the vertical, you'll often see the bridle piece vertical.
And yes, those of the hackamore can have collection just the same as those who have a bit. Instead of in the mouth, the pressure is exerted on the nose.
When they are over the bit or behind the bit, their head will be up too high. Now, she won't do it because she's pretty good about it. But she is notorious for being behind the bit, which means the neck arcs over too much. This is referred to as a roll cur. Now let's see collection at different gaits.
Even at a walk, I can start asking for collection. I want my cues in my hands to be nearly invisible, but that takes time. Here's a great example of Rimba strung out, or nose above the bit. Very rough. Here we see her much more collected, much smoother. Here's a fast and uncollected lope. This lope, much more collected, much smoother. Here I use my hands to gently set her into frame for her self-carriage in collection. I want these cues to become invisible, though. Here Rimba is seen being collected with one hand. Most Western disciplines do require collection with the use of one hand on the reins. Here we see two hands, often used in English or even Western dressage. Here's a tip. Your horse requires flexibility and suppleness. To get their body into frame, it takes work. Flexing your horse's neck and bending them can often help improve collection.
So now let's talk about sitting the trot. And we often think to ourselves, well, the trot's really rough, really bumpy. How can we sit it? The trot is a 2-beat gait. So you'll hear pa, 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 pa. And that is because all 4 feet are off the ground at some point in the trot. And that's why the horse goes up and it comes back down, comes up and it comes back down. That might be why you think, well, the canter seems much smoother. It's a 3-beat gait. You've always got 1 foot on the ground. So a trot is naturally going to be rougher. But there are ways that we can sit it gracefully, and it's the best thing for our horse's back. If you had someone on your back flopping around, you probably would be thrown off balance, you wouldn't be very comfortable. So we're going to go over that and see how it does make a difference in your ride and your performance.
Here's an example of how not to sit. I'm way too far forward, resting on my hands and thrown off balance. This rider reminds me of a weeping willow tree. In this clip, I'm leaning way too far back, with my feet forward and toes up. This makes the horse very uncomfortable. Now here's the correct form. Notice I'm collected, my hips are rocked underneath, I'm sitting on my back pockets, and I'm looking up. Think of absorbing this motion with your hips in your seat, like your legs were springs taking the shock. When you sit in correct form, you can even lie without stirrups, and still sit deep and absorb the trot. You do not put full weight in your stirrups. That is not where your weight should be. Your weight should be in your seat, using your thighs to squeeze. In this way, it does travel down into your heel, keeping you grounded. But stirrups are still important in the position of your heel. Here my foot is incorrectly way too far into the stirrup. Very dangerous. And again incorrectly, my toe is just barely touching the stirrup. I could easily lose the stirrup. Here I fix it. In proper form and equitation, my ear should be in line with my heel. I don't want to lean too far back with my hands out in front or too far forward with my face way out in front. In doing the trot, the hands are also very important. You want them quiet with little movement and invisible aids, like in this video. Here shown improperly, my hands are bouncing and moving way too much, causing my seat to also be rough. In the walk, your hands have a slight movement, a give and take with the horse's rhythm and stride. But in the trot, I want them stable, with invisible cues, and nice and quiet, making for a nice, collected, and smooth trot and ride. We can think of three main body parts in collection: the forehand, the middle or the barrel, and the hind. By achieving this collection in self-carriage, we can get that rear end up and under, moving forward, and getting collection. So whether you're on a dressage horse, or a horse who doesn't like to collect, or a gaited horse, or maybe a horse with no bridle at all, collection is what sets apart a very, very good rider.